Hello and welcome to the Context Podcast. I'm Enoke Kaumba. There were many interesting stories reported by the Namibian this week. Let's get context of some of the stories.
Those are what you call selective reporting, because corruption is everywhere. But of course, it doesn't justify, you see, that corruption should be entertained in the defense force.
We start off with the big one after Tileni Mungudi reported that the former Justice and Veteran Affairs Minister was linked to an old corruption case involving an offshore bank account in Hong Kong that is linked to a 1.8 billion Namibian dollar arms tender for the Namibian government 13 years ago. Tileni Mungudi on The Conversation gave context of the story.
Our government, our military was buying arms from China. At the time it was about $120, which is about 1.8 billion or 2 billion, maybe if you round it off. And we had a situation where these generals, Honorable Vilho was at the time the Rear Admiral responsible for the Navy, for the Namibian Navy. So they were negotiating these arms deals. They were the ones who placed the orders, who knew exactly what the army needed and so forth, and they were the ones who went to China to negotiate for this. So when you are then accused of being in business with the same company that you are trading with or that you're buying arms from, we're not saying that the minister is guilty because he's not been proven and he's not been charged with anything. We're just saying that it raises curious questions. It's you know, we are curious. It brings up more questions than answers. We want to know. From what point did he have these accounts in China? Where did the money come from that went into these accounts? And unfortunately, the excuse of saying that, well, he was a private person doesn't fly. It doesn't hold water because at the time, he was responsible for the Namibian Navy.
I just wanted to ask that. Would that then still sort of qualify for him to say that he's a private citizen being in that position?
So, you see, as a service chief, which is what he was, I don't think you qualify to be called a private citizen. You are, in fact, a person who reports directly to the Chief of Defense Force, who reports directly to the President.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a line with the Minister of Defense, but the Chief of Defense Force reports directly to the President. So, that makes you almost like third in the chain of command in terms of the military. So how does that then make you a private citizen?
Yeah.
And this is my question. I mean, does every private citizen have access to the President and to the Chief of Defense Force and to Cabinet and wherever else you go?
Yeah.
So this is where we are saying that, unfortunately, then the mayor of Windhoek then started accusing the minister of being corrupt, right? So we could not prove that, and we kept asking, okay, can you please provide proof as to why you are saying that the Minister of Defense is corrupt?
Yeah.
And this is one of the pieces of evidence that the mayor produced to say, but look at this. So the minister then has to answer.
What they can do is just to stop stealing. So the question that they must ask themselves is that how did we manage to get into China, to get into Hong Kong with the lockdown and all those things? And which flight did we use to transport the statement?
Okay, just one more question from my side. I'm Shinovene from the Namibian. There have been allegations of rife corruption for years at the Ministry of Defense in terms of procurement and others. Are you going to do anything regarding that concern, or
Those are what you call selective reporting, because corruption is everywhere. But of course, it doesn't justify, you see, that corruption should be entertained in the defense force.
Now, after he was summoned to be in the meeting with President Gengo on Tuesday, Peter Vilho later handed in his resignation, making him the shortest serving minister in Namibian history. Another interesting story that was reported this week was the story of Kristofina Amutenya, the woman who is being accused of killing her 2 minor children in Ethiopia last year, arrived in Namibia this week and appeared in court, and she was later released. I spoke to Werner Menges to give us more context on this story.
Yes, this is actually an immensely sad case. I think many readers would agree. It involves Kristofina Amutenya, who is a mother accused of murdering her 2 children, a 9-year-old boy, his name was Janae Haufiku, and her 3-year-old daughter Jane Haufiku, in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, on 12 December last year. It is alleged that she strangled the 2 children. Now, she was in Ethiopia as a diplomatic spouse. Her husband, now her ex-husband, is Namibia's trade attaché attached to the country's embassy in Addis Ababa. They were divorced in early November last year, and custody of the children was awarded to her husband. But she was still in Ethiopia in December, and it is alleged that the 2 murders were committed then. She was brought back to Namibia by the Ethiopian authorities on Monday, this past Monday, Easter Monday, and arrested on her arrival in the country, and appeared in court on 2 charges of murder and 1 charge of attempted murder the next day. Her lawyer objected or raised questions about the basis of her detention and arrest in Namibia. They also brought an urgent application in the High Court. And then the next day, on Wednesday, before the matter in the High Court was to be heard on the following day, which was Thursday. So on Wednesday, the state withdrew the charges against her provisionally. So she is now, for now, free in Namibia.
I'm sure you spoke to some experts, some legal experts. The facts of the story, or the alleged facts of the story, are an individual allegedly murders 2 minors and attempts to murder a 3rd one. They have diplomatic immunity in the country that they allegedly commit these crimes, and the country in which she is from expatriates her from Ethiopia with those known charges. How is it possible that what are the legal experts saying? How is it possible that she can still be able to get her charges withdrawn so that she can be free?
Okay, well, one has to distinguish here between the matter of the diplomatic immunity, the question of that, or the issue of that, and the withdrawal of the charges this week. The matter of diplomatic immunity is a very interesting point, and I'm sure it will come up again if the case, or when the case proceeds further in Namibia. I know that there is a legal opinion that was written by the office of, or a lawyer in the office of the Attorney General, considering the matter, and the opinion is that while she had diplomatic immunity in Ethiopia, Namibia, as the sending country, that's the term they use, still has jurisdiction over her, or the Namibian courts have jurisdiction over her, or even if the alleged crimes were committed in Ethiopia, because it is alleged that it was committed, basically on diplomatic premises in that country, which would then be considered like part of Namibia. So the opinion says that the Namibian courts still have jurisdiction over her locally. Now, from my understanding and inquiries that I've made, it seems that with her arrival back in Namibia, a proper police docket with evidence on the case was not also provided to the Namibian authorities. So there's not proper evidence, like one would find with a local investigation, statements, witness statements and things like that, available at the moment locally. And that seems to be the reason why the charges were withdrawn.
Looking at the story itself, if you read it very well, you'll find that her lawyers state that they are ready to defend their client if anything comes by. How do we maybe see the story playing out?
Yes, I must say, a lawyer, Mr. Kadila Mumo, and a colleague from his firm, Mr. Nkali, they seem to have spotted quite quickly that there might be a gap in the state's case, and they used it quite cleverly with the urgent application which they brought, and that resulted in the charges being dropped this week. I must also say that in terms of the section of the Criminal Procedure Act under which the charges were withdrawn, that deals with a provisional withdrawal of charges, so the charges can be reinstated at a later stage. The Prosecutor General also informed me this week that the charges will be reinstated at a later stage when the state is ready. So I think we will still see further developments in this matter. And when it goes on trial or when it returns to court, I think one can expect that lawyers will again look at the legal issues very carefully and will try to find any gaps that they can see and challenge prosecution or renewed prosecution in Namibia. So it's a matter that will develop, and it raises some interesting legal questions.
Indeed. Werner, thank you very much for joining.
Thank you.
Now moving on to some sports news. After nearly 3 years without Premier League football in the country, the Namibian Football Association this week announced the launch of the much anticipated Namibia Football Premier League, which is slated to kick off next week on the 17th of April. I spoke to one of our veteran reporters, Conrad Angula.
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful thing for all football loving fans that at least the league season is about to start.
This launch is historic in the sense that we, the family of the NFA, they have successfully expelled the former MPL and subsequently gave birth to a brand new top-tier league under the auspices of the only Namibia national football controlling body, the NFA.
Okay, the league is about to start, but NPL still is coming to the forefront and trying to, which we also reported, trying to say that no, there's a case of identity theft. The name NPFL that is coming from NFA is almost like NPL, and people might be confused. And also the clubs that are affiliated to NPFL were registered or are part of NPL. How do you see that playing out? Can you give us context of that situation?
Yeah, it is just unfortunate that things are happening the way they are right now. The NPL is a league which was is it kicked out by the NFA at one point? But now the NFA is announcing a new league which is starting. The NPL is not a league that belongs to anyone, or was not a league that belonged to anyone. People are coming in football and they are leaving. People left the NPL as a league in the past, and then a new committee came from this current people who were now dismissed from the league. And then the NFA is about to start a league which is now the Namibia Premier Football League. I don't know. It is Namibia, it is Premier, it is football, and it is a league. I don't know how it can how that can be identity theft. Who started the NPL? Is it the people who are currently the leaders of the NPL, or is it the league which has existed before they became part of the league? On the other hand, teams are said to have affiliated to both the former and the current new league. Now, the teams belong to communities. The communities have decided that they are going to affiliate their teams with the NFA. It shouldn't be a problem if the leadership of the NPL rebels decide that the teams belong to them. Why don't they go to court and prove that in court that the teams belong to them? I was always under the impression that I played for Chiefs Sandals, I played for Tigers. Those teams belong to the community. And that is how it should be. Why should it change now? There were never professional teams that belong to an individual. People must just bury their hatchets and allow progress in our football.
Let's put into context the fact that NPL has always been taking matters of football to court, and nothing seems to be coming their way. They threatened that if the NFA by the 6th, which were that day has passed, if they don't see into their demands, they will put in a case on the 13th of April. Where do you see that going?
Yeah, I think this is a well-planned thing to disrupt football in the country. There is this notion that if the NFA is taken to court, then the NFA will be dismissed. That is actually the aim of the people. So now it is also clear to the community or to the world outside there that who are really the people who are against development of the game in this country. So so far, those people have tried to use every trick in the book. So I think this is the last straw. Maybe this is now the final aim to try to get the NFA or Namibian football being kicked out by FIFA. But FIFA have got ears. They read papers. And of course, NFA is the representatives of FIFA in this country. I think we will see, or we will reach a point where we'll see that certain people or individuals will be told that they are being dismissed out of football for life. You will see. But I see a lot of things coming. The Namibia Football League are the custodians of football in this country. Before independence, anybody could do anything because we were not affiliated to a regional structure, to a continental structure, or to a world structure those years. It was okay to do anything that we wished. But now, after the years of bush football was set aside, we have joined the FIFA family. Things are done according to football rules, meaning that every football body which is going to be affiliated or started in Namibia should be done with the blessings of the Namibia Football Association. What is the problem of the NPL to go back to the NFA and ask for their blessings? As long as they play under the mantle of the NFA, they are going to be construed as an official league in this country. But not so they can kiss playing football in this country goodbye. Where the same people who dismissed the executive committee of the NPL and someone from football house, he was the ad hoc or the stand-in executive guy to see that the NPL was played. But now, where do you draw the line? The same thing was done now, the same thing was done then. But then the people who are today advising this current NPL are the very same people who also intervened into the matters of the NPL and dismantled the existing committee and doing the same thing which is happening now. So who's fooling who? I would love to advise the people from the NPL. They want to start a new league, a professional league. It's good. But they just go back to the NFA, ask for the blessings of the NFA, they start their league. That is the only way they can play football in this country. It is the only way they can play football in this country, and that is being affiliated to the NFA. That is bush football.
Tade Conrad, thank you very much for joining.
Thank you for having me.
And that's all we have for you on the Context Podcast today. Be on the lookout again for another podcast next week.